Yo, what up? Good morning. It is morning time in Cameroon. And I'm making a video explaining why I'm not black. I'm not black. I'm not a nigga. And I'm not an African American. Okay? I should call this video, "We Don't Want to Hear That Bullshit, Sharif," because that's what it's really about. If anybody comes from my era in the 90s, they know where that comes from. It comes from the movie Menace to Society, where you had Sharif, who was a part of the group with Kane and Old Dog, where he was trying to explain to them who they really are. And based off of ignorance and defiance, they don't want to hear what he has to say. He was trying to tell you what your roots are and where you come from. If you've seen the movie, you understand. But in any kind of movie or in any kind of thing like that, people like Sharif get rejected. And what people don't understand is I'm about to speak the truth. That is psychologically embedded into your mind by the so-called oppressor. Whenever somebody who looks like you is trying to free your mind and tell you who you really are, you're automatically trained to attack them. And it's been like that since the beginning of time. Like, for instance, I'm in Africa right now. I'm in West Africa, which, they're developing. People aren't living in huts and eating dirt cookies and all that shit you see on the news or whatever those infomercials. Oh, please, they're starving, they're dying. There's two parts of Africa. You have the villages where a lot of the tribes don't even deal with any of the people. This is the city area. It's not all pretty and glamorous and every building is painted and the roads may be dirty and it's just dirt and all that kind of stuff, because their sewers are like little dugout tunnels on each side of the road that build up. It's just a different world out here, but they have cities just like we have cities, right? They have sodas, they have cookies. It may not be Chips Ahoy, it may not be Cheez-Its, but it's like their own stuff that they have here because it's a different country. Imports aren't so, freely sent to Africa. But what you'll notice here is that Africans don't call each other nigga. They don't do that. They don't say, yo, what up, nigga, or bitch ass nigga, and all this nigga. I haven't heard one African person say that. First of all, they don't refer to themselves as black. They refer to themselves as Africans because that's what they are. That's what you are. Okay? No niggas, no any of this, motherfucker this, motherfucker that. No violence, no fighting, laughing, just, in the ceremony, everybody's just, together. When they say nigga over here, it's very rare. Over here, in many other parts of Africa, when somebody calls someone a nigga, it's like shaming them. It's like you've brought shame to yourself. Like you're like the lowest of the low. Like you're the nigga or the nigger. Like it's different. In America, it's a term of endearment, which it shouldn't be. Period. So, in that aspect, if you think deeply about it, it'll make more sense, right? But because your mind was trained to think that you are black or you are a nigga, whatever, that's the only thing you can respond to. But if you really want to get down to the meat and potatoes, nobody can thrive and feel completely free until they know who they truly are, right? So what I mean by that is that, like, for me, for instance, like I took one of those DNA tests, like ancestry tests, to find out who you are. And when I did it, I discovered, I don't remember exactly the percentages. I just remember which one was higher and lower. I think like Spanish, I was like 3 or 2% or something like that. White, I was like 9 or something, whatever. But then, sub-Saharan African was my, dominant percentage. So to me, whatever your predominant percentage is, that's what you are. so I'm sub-Saharan African, right? But in America, I'm a nigga. In America, I'm black. In America, I'm African American. What is an African American? An African American, let's go by the technical term. An African American is an African that comes from Africa that comes to America. I'm not African American. What is black? Have you seen Malcolm X? You ever stop to think about why they call you black? What does he say? He looked up in a dictionary. Black. What is it? Void of color, darkness, wickedness. I don't accept being called black anymore. Black is actually a slur. When you compare it to white, white is pure, white is beautiful, white is, just perfect and all that. When neither somebody who's black or white is like that, it just depends on the person. But this is the ideology that's put in your mind, and it's made for you to stay and think like that. Because as long as you think of yourself as inferior, you will never rise. Nobody who's white, even Hispanic or Asian, nobody's inferior over anybody. Period. But that's the ideology that's been embedded primarily mostly in so-called black people's head, because it's so-called. That's another thing that Malcolm X said, so-called black people. You ever stop to think about that? So-called. That's what I refer to it as all the time, because that's 100% accurate. You are who you say you are, not what somebody else tells you to be. Let me tell you what black is. Black is the food that you eat. Black is the music that you listen to, the clothes that you wear. How you think about your fellow so-called black man. All this shit came from somebody of another race, which doesn't exist. And what's that race? It comes from the so-called oppressor. If you accept being black and a nigga and an African, whatever the hell that is, you accept what they created you to be. The so-called oppressor has a hand in your music, a hand in your food, a hand in how you dress, how you talk. You don't realize that? Who owns the record companies? Who's telling the young black youth what to sing and rap about? Is it positive? Who owns it? Your food? Neck bones? Pig feet? Chicken necks? Greens? Where did that come from? That's what the slave masters gave the slaves. And they just made it into a tradition because that's all you had. If you are a descendant of Africa and to America. The N word with the hard ER. So-called black people turned it into a term of endearment. Now we say it amongst each other like if it's cool, but it's not, because it's a derivative of the ER version, which is always a constant reminder that you are an inferior human being the more you keep calling each other that. Africans don't do that. But so-called black Americans do. Meanwhile, it's just keeping you inferior. And that's my main point. And race. What is race? Let me tell you something right now. There is no such thing as race. Race doesn't exist. Race was created to divide people. Sure, there's certain cultures, groups of people who are good at certain things like sports and stuff, blacks, but white people are good at stuff. Asian people are good at stuff. Indian people are good at stuff. Hispanics are good at stuff. That's just, to me, that's just they're in a particular environment. They've trained certain things, and over time, evolution has made them good at certain things. We're all unique and special, but there's no race. We're all, if you want to call it race, you have to call it the human race. Race was created to divide and make certain people seem superior and other people seem inferior. Think about it. Skin color. It's based off of skin color. Okay, so if you want to say I'm this race because I'm this skin color, why not base it off of eye size? Why not base it off of ears? Why not base it off of how tall someone is? Oh, this race is tall. Why do you think they specifically chose skin color? What if it was the other way around? What if so-called black people were the one with the ships and the guns and came and took over, let's say all the white people were in Africa and made them slaves, and then they were dealing with this? Then black would be the gold standard if they decided to take the same route that the so-called oppressor did by oppressing. We don't know because the Africans didn't have that power. Maybe they would have. But let's say you'll see billboards with black women with afros. And that would be like the standard of beauty. Ooh, the darker the skin, the more beautiful you are. If you have white skin, oh, that's pale. That's not good. That's all it is. So if you want to accept that ideology, then you're just easily programmed. Oh, white is better because it's a prettier color. Black is ugly. I'm not saying everybody thinks like this, but you know what I'm talking about. When someone has darker skin, they're ugly, or, oh, they're inferior and all that. This has been transcended down for generation to generation until it's become embedded in your head and you think that it's facts. And it's not. You have to know who you are. You know what I call racism? I coined my own phrase for this and name for this. It's not race. It's skinism. It's not racism. It's skinism. Either skinism or skin picking. This is what I call it because this is what it really is. If you don't like somebody because they're a darker skin color, you're a skin picker. Not a racist, a skin picker, because that's what it is. You need to stop with this race shit. It doesn't exist. Skin pickers, or skinism, or colorism. Race doesn't exist. All facts. Black is not a nationality. Do you know what a nationality is? A nationality is built off of a group of people, maybe in a certain country, who've, have their language, have their traditional food, not what somebody else told their food was, have their music, have their traditional values, marriages, and how they do birthdays and ceremonies and stuff. That's a nationality. Chinese is a nationality. Koreans, the South Koreans, and even the North Koreans, a nationality. Spain, they have a nationality. Fucking Irish, Polish, whatever. These are nationalities. Black is not a nationality. It's not. It has no foundation. It was cooked up by the so-called oppressor, which you have the choice to believe in that shit or find who you really are. Stop thinking that you have to settle for this. Oh, this is who I am. It's not who you are. Go do a DNA ancestry test. Find what you are and learn that. And go find yourself. So by me being a so-called Black American, you know what I identify myself as? By me being a so-called Black American, I don't identify as Black. I don't accept this trash. What they tell me I am, because everything associated with Black and nigga and all this is negativity. You know what I call myself? This is what I literally am. I am African descent. That's it. It's up to me to find out my roots and who I am so I can have the confidence whenever some white person calls me the N-word or anything, it's not going to affect me. Because I'm no longer a part of what you told me I am. So you can't affect me anymore. Think about it. When you know who you truly are, you're proud, you're happy. People here are proud. Okay, they don't got a lot of money, they don't got all this, but they have a culture, tradition, the way they do things. They're proud. The mayor, the actual mayor married me and my wife in Africa. And I spoke with the mayor for a long time after the ceremony was over. We had beers. And I talked to him, and he was blown away when I was telling him about how America is and black. He was like, wow. But the one thing he said that made sense, and this is something that we say, some black people that say, after I told him all that, he's like, well, that's just based off of ignorance. And that's facts. It all starts with ignorance. If you are ignorant to who you are and what you truly represent, you will always be suppressed. You have to come out of that and realize that. So I don't identify as black, a nigga, or an African American. I'm none of that. I'm African descent. Now it's up to me to find my roots and find who I am. Since me specifically is primarily African, learn my language, learn my culture, so I can be proud of who I am. The reason why you're not proud, because subconsciously you are accepting this black matter that has all this negative stuff attached to it, that subconsciously keeps you oppressed and keeps you feeling like shit. Now I understand. So-called black people took all that bullshit and turned it into something like to be proud of. I get it. But unless if you really truly know who you are, that will always be a constant reminder of how somebody has made you to believe that you're inferior. You can't reach your true potential unless if you free your mind and be like, you know what, I don't want to be a part of it. I want to find out who I am. Now, here's another thing too. This is something, people have to research. You have to read. You have to learn about things. This is something that people don't understand. Not every single so-called black person in America is a slave from Africa. They're not. You have to really think about this. Do you think it's possible for them to have taken hundreds of thousands of fucking slaves to America to build up everything? It's not possible. If you do the math, it's not possible. If you do further research, you will realize that black people were already in America. So-called black people, right? They were called Moors. Look it up. They look like Native Americans, dark skin, long hair. Moors. You may be a Moor. If you do an ancestry test or you dig deeper and find your lineage, you may be a Moor. You may not even be African. So-called black people were already here, but it is a fact that slavery happened. They came and kidnapped a lot of black people and all that. But that's not every single black person in America. You got to research. You got to read. You got to find out who you are and stop thinking, oh, this is what I am and all this. Come on, man. It's time to wake up. And one thing that is the biggest fact and problem with so-called black people is that almost most black people are affected by Willie Lynch syndrome. Look it up. Willie Lynch syndrome. If anybody knows who Willie Lynch is, he was one of the prominent slave owners who taught all the other slave owners how to control their slaves and how to corrupt their minds to make them believe that they're nothing and to turn against themselves. Why do you think most so-called black people are quick to kill our own and destroy our own? That started from Willie Lynch. He trained all the slaves. He was very big. He was popular. He wrote this thing. He came up with this thing of how to make so-called black people hate who they are, hate their hair, hate their skin, and also gave them the formula to turn against each other. This has been happening for generation to generation. Why do you think we kill each other? Not all so-called black people is like that, but there's a lot of us that are like that. And that's just a fact. Where do you think that comes from? What do you think people who are speaking like me are trying to break you out of that so that you understand what's really going on? This is the truth. This is real. You will never be free. Just because you are not physically in chains doesn't mean your mind is not in chains. Free your mind. Your enemy cannot make you free. I don't give a damn how much reparations. Your enemy cannot make you free. You have to make you free. This is the truth. Willie Lynch syndrome is in full effect in 2026. Since the beginning of so-called black people's time in America. Until you realize that, things will remain the same. You have to find who you are and be proud of who you are. And another thing that is it's just a thing in America, like this thing about being ghetto or being hood. What is ghetto? What is hood? Do you know what that is? Do you know what ghetto is? Do you know what hood is? That is a culture. Again, that is a culture. That's actually, it's like a subculture, right? It's a subculture within a culture. And guess what? All so-called cultures, not races, have their own. You think white people are not ghetto? You have ghetto-ass white people in the trailer parks and shit like that, and some of them are hood. Like me getting on the fucking plane. You know how a black woman, a so-called black woman, will hear a kid crying or he's not getting disciplined. That black woman be like, man, you need to get popped in the mouth. Man, shut up, man. Man, you need to pop that kid in the mouth, man. You're tired of it. And even though I don't, I will laugh at that because I've been in, so-called black culture. So whatever you're raised with, it's funny to you, because you can identify with it because it's a culture, right? But, you look at white people will never hit their kids and, it's abusive and, you're abusing your kids and, why would you pop them in the mouth and, oh my God. That's the narrative for white people, right? Wrong. Not all white people are like that. Some white people are hood as hell. Like, for instance, when I was on my first flight, I was in Los Angeles, right? And I was getting ready to get on we're waiting to get on a plane. You had this kid that was just crying. The woman wasn't doing nothing. She wasn't trying to calm her down and all this, whatever. So the example that I just gave you of the black woman, a woman did that. And she was traveling in business class, which is expensive, right? And guess what? It wasn't a black woman, it was a white woman in business class. And we was chopping it up. I actually got a clip of it. I recorded it. This white lady was like talking like a so-called black lady. Man, straight up. She was like, man, you need to pop this kid in the mouth. Slap this kid in the mouth. What's wrong with this kid? Like, how come she ain't doing nothing to discipline this kid and all this, you need to slap him in the mouth and all this, blah, blah, blah. She was like, oh my God, man, shut this damn kid up. If that was my kid, I would have whooped his ass, all this shit. And she was fucking white lady, blonde hair, blue eyes, business lady. She wasn't having none of that. You got to get this shit out of your mind that if you're black, you're ghetto. You got ghetto Hispanics. You got ghetto Indians. When I went to the Philippines, you had ghetto Filipinos and Filipinas. Certain areas you go to, they hood as fuck. I've been to the Philippines. I've been to Canada. You got ghettos over there. That's a culture. It's a subculture. Not just black people are ghetto. Anybody can be ghetto. Look, you can look at Melk74, the dude on YouTube. This dude was raised in LA. He was raised around only so-called black people. He was raised in that environment. He talks like that. He lives like that. And all this, right? So what does that make him? What is white? What is black? What is that? It's a fucking color. It's not who you are. He identifies with that. He doesn't know how to identify with, with being white, whatever you want to call it. He doesn't know that. The only thing he knows is that culture. So what does that make him? Ask yourself that question. You have to think. Everybody was given a brain to use their brain. So, go there with it. Subcultures exist even that isn't, ghetto or whatever you want to call it. Not ghetto. It could be something else. America is comprised of all different cultures. And sometimes people gravitate towards another culture. Somebody who's white may gravitate towards black culture, either the main culture or the subculture. They may gravitate towards it. Hey, I like this. This is what I want to be a part of. Look at how many, so-called black people or Hispanics are into Japanese anime and they're into Japanese culture. I was like that when I was young. I love Japanese anime and all that kind of stuff. That's their culture. So because you're black or Hispanic, you can't love their culture. You can't identify with their culture. That's your choice. America is comprised of all different types. Whatever white culture is, if that's what you like, go for it. Why can't it just be based off of the person, not what they like or who they choose to love or whatever? It comes down to a cultural preference. Some cultures clash. That's what it is. It's clashing, right? Mainly because of not understanding each other, more than likely. When you understand, some people fear what they don't understand. And that's another thing. Like, if you were to take somebody who's so-called white and put them in a predominantly black neighborhood and they've seen it and they've identified with it and they understand it, they wouldn't be scared. They'd be like, whatever, because they understand it. But you take somebody who doesn't understand it, hasn't lived it, and all that, they're going to be terrified. They're going to be like, oh, what's going on? And it makes sense because you were never exposed to it. You were never around it. It's based off of culture. And anyway, that's my take on the whole thing. So I just had to make that quick video, talk my shit. It's probably going to be the last time I get on Facebook. I've been posting and grateful for everybody who's, commented, posted, and hearted. I'm going to make one more video shouting out all the people who, commented and gave me thumbs up and, shout out to all of you. I think we don't embrace each other enough as human beings. And I think we don't understand that the people that we grew up with from childhood up until now are very special people. You can never have any of these experiences that we had, whoever you grew up with anybody else. It can only be with us. We should cherish each other. We should stay connected. We should talk. And I appreciate all those shout outs from Nick Simon to, even Eric Contreras, everybody, Stacy even went in there, Danielle, it's just all of you guys, and I'm going to make me a video shouting out everybody, letting them know that we don't understand that we all feed off of each other. I think of it in a deeper aspect. If it wasn't for the people in my life, whether it was minor encounters or major encounters, made it possible for me to be where I am right now. All of the important people in my life made it possible for me to be this way. My friend Mark, Larry, Devin, all my friends and their parents had an influence on me. My friend Larry's mom had a huge influence on me. Having a 15-year-old friend when we were little kids working in a donut shop, mom putting you to work in a donut shop at 15 years old, having a Super Nintendo in there. We had to come in there and play a Super Nintendo with him because his mom put his ass to work. Period. You don't understand, like people in Africa, Philippines, Cambodia and shit, them motherfuckers work, man. They work. These are the type of friends I had. This is the type of things I seen. Everybody in your life has an impact on you that makes you who you are. You gotta understand that. We don't pay attention to these type of things. But we have to thank all the people that were a part of our life. Even if it was a person you just met for one day, they impacted your life in some way. But whatever. That's all I gotta say. Shout out to everybody. That's my take on being so-called black. I'm out.